Hello everyone, I'm Xiao Gang. What are we covering in this lesson? In this lesson, this chapter is about an overview of standalone programs. What is a standalone program? What is a project? Everyone should know that, right? We've already started nearly 20 projects, so a standalone program is essentially the same as a project. However, compared to a project, a standalone program is not as comprehensive. A project is a game project or a film project, which is very complex, whereas a standalone program only handles a certain portion of these tasks. These tasks might be your editor development, or you doing some functions that need to be executed at runtime, like an independent program. It is actually a small project, and this part of the knowledge belongs to advanced knowledge. That is, if you want to be promoted in the future to a senior Unreal Engine development engineer or a senior Unreal Engine development engineer, then this part of the knowledge is something you must master, and it's not like you can just casually learn it. It's like you need to be very proficient in this. If you are only a junior or intermediate level, actually, this part of the knowledge might be difficult for you to absorb. It's possible that when you follow Xiaogang, it feels very simple to do. But in fact, the content inside, the amount of knowledge inside is actually very deep, because essentially, writing the standalone program is essentially developing an excellent editor. Essentially, it's just that you made this editor, which might not be as powerful as Unreal, because the editor made by Unreal can have a world, have an actor on these animations, etc., sound effects, visual effects, and these various models, these things. And when you make this editor, it might only target certain assets, certain texts, implementing some features, some thoughts like that. So this thing is very powerful, and it is mainly divided into two categories. The first category is this command line type, right? You might have thought sometimes when we develop a project, we only need a command line. So something like a command line, this kind of program, it can actually handle some tasks. For example, some servers, small servers, or some local mini programs for CRUD operations, local mini programs. Then there is another type with the UI, with Slate interfaces, with custom interfaces. With these, you can create your own tool with a visual UI. If you are developing some industrial-grade digital human applications, then you might need to refer to this kind of approach. Then this part of the knowledge is really very difficult. So next, let's show him. First, look at a simple example. Then, before looking at the example, let's first check our environment. I have two sets of environments here. One set is our latest UE 5.4, the 5.4.2 environment. Does everyone still remember where to check the environment? I remember it seems to be under source runtime. There is a launch, right? Under launch, there is a versions. You can see launch. It seems we can just search for it directly. It should be named vision.h. Let's just match it directly. Hey, right here, he puts it in this resource. This method of his is quite special. Okay, it's right here. Put it here. So we are now on version 5.4.2. It's fine if you use 5.4.3. It's fine if you use 5.0, 5.1, or 5.2 because this set of tools I have verified it. From 5.0 to 5.4, it should be mostly fine. This is the engine source code for 5.0. This one is quite special. The special thing is that if you compile 5.0, you might just not use 5.0. It's because of compiling 5.0. You need this VS20 Then there's this issue. Then you might not be able to complete such a complex environment. And if you compile a source engine, you need at least 300 gigabytes of SSD space. So it's still quite complicated. Okay, how do we verify if your source engine was successful? Let me check. I think I'm a bit confused here. This should be our source engine, and then I want to build it. Building this part definitely needs to pass the build. Obviously, as long as the build passes here, there's no problem. You can see we have no issues here either. Is this for 5.0 or 5.1? If it doesn't pass, you might need to go back and check. The first chapter, how to install our Unreal Engine. Move this over here. Okay, this side also passed the build. Now, pay attention. There's a detail here. We selected the lowest level bitard editor mode, and here, pay attention to this project of ours. If you generally, which project would we use? We would set it as the startup project. That is, here. You must specify which project to start. Otherwise, you might open the wrong one sometimes. That is a mistake that 100% of beginners will make. Because it compiles and launches, it doesn't know which project to use. Then let's first look at this pure command line version. So this is a pure command line program. You can see it actually only has this much code. This defines some global variables. And then in here, this is its main function. Does this main function look familiar? Then let's just launch it directly. You'll see it simply flashes by, right? Okay, so this one is written a bit more complex. Actually, we don't need to look at this. You see, it writes too much here. So actually it goes like this. We can set a breakpoint here. Check the breakpoint. Okay, it entered and flashed by. Ignore this part, because this is obviously executed after it ends. Then here the engine initializes. Finally Gaussian succeeded. Or then this prints a log. You can see it. We have a log here. Okay, then it exits. After exiting, key through this red. After the engine ends, execute the engine's pre-exit. Then close this module. Then the engine truly exits. So this thing is very simple. Just these few lines of code, right? But why is this thing written this way? What is the difference between it and our project? So this thing, it doesn't have a gameplay architecture. It doesn't have AC tours. No world. It's all about manipulating U classes. If you are not familiar with the engine's underlying framework, then what you write will be full of bugs. That's the situation. Then later, we will write to you all, saying, don't worry too much. Okay, this is a simple command line program. Then our part, let's simply modify it. We will add one line. You see it here. Okay, let's move these breakpoints over. We also set breakpoints in this one. We can say it should actually flash by. You can't see it, right? This is very normal, because it exits directly. Let's start it again. Okay, then let's look at this part. That's after winning the day. So, this is an excellent way to select command lines. This knowledge is really important. That is, if you can't quite figure it out, then you can take a lock first. You don't need to operate, because if you work with Unreal Engine, you might spend several days and still not get it done. With this Unreal Engine, take a look at this knowledge, because many of our advanced topics later on are tied to standalone programs. This thing is unavoidable. I'll try my best to explain it in an engineering way. This is our blank one. It's purely command line based. Then let's take a look at one that just arrived with the UI. This UI is called SWindow. Let's set it as the startup. Let's launch it directly first. After launching, it will present a standalone program. Okay, so the standalone program it provides, you see, has a lot of thinking. Isn't this our editor? So, don't you want to achieve such a cool feature? Right? So what do you want to learn? Just learn Slate. Later, we will guide you through writing something like this, and here are various icons. It provides some examples of how to interact. This is our Slate. It's just that in our project, we use UMG. You see, once you master these things, you can start developing editor. For example, Speed Boys really like to build their own editor platform like this. Of course, the difficulty level here is very high. In this kind of standalone program, there will be issues with packaging it. For the simplest kind of standalone program, you can just set it up directly. For example, as we demonstrated earlier, this standalone program, where is it located? It is actually located here. Find our application. Find our iPad. Find our latest. Then find our... Let me check. You don't need to worry about this. We are mainly looking at the engine. Barrels, 164. Then you see this blank. Let's double click it. Do you get my point? It can start up completely normally here. But what is the biggest problem? The biggest problem is if you want to bake this out, then it depends on, many of its parts are dependent on the engine. So how do we handle this problem? The way we handle it is also very simple. You will find that if you directly take this, for example, if I bake this part out, we put it here, we put it on the desktop, you will find that it cannot run. You can see, right? So we need to take its dependencies and export them. Then we will demonstrate later how to do it. We will cover this later. So this is about the standalone program and how to package it. Just mentioning this point. Okay, so here, let's come back to this part. We won't cover Slate for URL app because it's too complicated. We will write a simple one for everyone, like this. But the approach is exactly the same. Exactly the same. We can see that he has written so much code here. We need to note that here we look at Windows. Windows will enter from this point. And then, obviously, other platforms will enter from their respective points. Then this place will execute this run slip as Euler, and this place will pass command line parameters. Then at this point, we don't need to look at any of these. These are some initialization procedures. We will guide you to write them. And here, we mainly look here. This can pass the parameters passed from our command line. And now if we start it directly, let's start it. You can see it goes this way. It goes inside here. goes here. So why does it go this way? Why does it generate so many interfaces? Actually, it is through command line parameters. So how do we set the command line parameters? If we have installed Visual Studio, we can directly here. There is a top round box here. We can set it here. But obviously, we haven't installed Visual Studio yet because it is also a learning cost. So you can install it yourself. Then we can right-click here, right-click inside this public. We can enter some commands in this command here. And then for this command, for example, if we wanted to execute this perfect test, we don't care about this. Here, perfect test, we do it here. Okay, we confirm. Good. Now let's execute it. You will see that the interface it brings up is different. Good. Let's look because it goes through here now. Then you'll see that this interface that was pulled up, it looks like this. This is widget, reflect. We don't need to worry about it. You can see it just looks like the lens and mama, right? Look, this is a table testing. Then what do we do in the actually these are some slates already written by the engine. Here it just needs to register, wake up and split. Then you can pull it up. It's that simple and it's very obvious. And this one in front. The reflection we just did, obviously use Slate to do a simple reflection. Look at this place. There are also some things like web browser widget. Then you can actually use this to make a browser. You can play audio and video, but you need to note that Unreal's browser kernel is relatively old. You need to manually upgrade it. Okay. So that concludes our overview. Okay. Then, mainly, as you can see later, this becomes a negative loop. It advances frame by frame. Actually, we should follow this kind of approach, which is a better, more standard way of writing, because it advances frame by frame into the engine. These things. Then, the things inside the engine can correspondingly do some after all. So, what we need to master, mainly our origins, are one blank program. Another is Slate over your. Of course, this is very difficult because you need to understand this engine, such a process of initialization. So, the rule of Xiaogang in this is that we start with a blank program and then step by step reach the level of Slate. But this Slate over your, you may need to do an in-depth analysis and study on your own because we will write this for you. It's fine to show it to you now. After all, it's an overview, so we just want to give you a general understanding. We won't worry about this part here. We mainly focus on this. We set it as the startup project, okay? You can see this is what we refer to as the slow weaver. We wrote a simple thought process like this ourselves. We wrote some Slate. You can see, right, we search the code, then modify some files and so on, and we can do it like this. Actually, we also had a previous set of courses here. What did we start through it? We set it as the startup project. Then we launch it. We wrote something called, we wrote an HTTP server. We have a set of courses like this. Then, when we initialize the port, it's normal that my circle cannot be connected here because we have this, my Slate turned off. Actually, this place, it can connect here. This should be, its port is 80-4-1000 pen 12. Here, 227.0.18036 XMT. It seems we cannot skip this part. Then let's ignore it, because we will cover it later. This is about, because this has already been covered, the content we have here. Where is the content that has been presented? Actually, it's right here. Here. We are here. Here, we search this database. Here, this is what we recorded for everyone. But the code in this version is actually quite simple. Actually, because we haven't refactored it. Actually, after I finish writing this set, it has actually been updated to nearly version 2.0. You refactored the version. It needs to be more precise and accurate from now on. It needs to be more commercial. Okay, so this is our HTTP server, and I'll briefly explain it. What is this? We set it as the startup project. You can tell by the name, it's a live link. What exactly is this live link? It's actually a tool made by the official Unreal Engine team. So this is a very simple technique, but if you go deeper into it, if you fully master this part, then you can work on digital content, and your salary should be at least no less than 20K. If you are working on motion capture like this, or if it involves AI solving and data delivery. So where is this content? You can find it in Unreal Engine. Let's look for it. This thing is actually it. we search for live link, you will find that this is the thing. There is really very little material available in the market. Only this expert talks about it. That's him. He is the expert. What this expert talks about. This thing is him, and these are some independent programs I studied before. Okay, so we will conclude this lesson here, and maybe this chapter, I might have mentioned this to you before. If you want to add command line parameters here, how do you add them? You simply create a new shortcut here. Right, let's confirm it. Okay, this shortcut is here. You enter it here. Take a look. It should be added here. Add the parameters after it. Then it's done. Then you added these command parameters on top of this. Whether you are in the project, you can always partial it through some comment commands. The command parameters passed when you start it. What do we often use this for? For example, if we have multiple DS servers, that is, our servers, then when I start the server for this level, I can, at startup, pass in the specified map. I can also, after startup, communicate via WebSocket. I tell you that this server has started. You now need to jump to this map. Wait for the player to connect. This is the architecture of a distributed online game. That's roughly what it means. This command line, it has many commands. Maybe I'll explain them later. We'll just cover the most commonly used ones. Okay, we can stop here. Thank you, everyone.